It is finally time for a new episode of Blind Leading the Blind. This one has been long awaited, long anticipated. I don't want to spoil it, but we're walking up to the blind goat, and if you know, you know. And also, this is our first episode featuring a blind female, and I couldn't be more excited, so let's go see who it is. What?
You stopped right in front of this wall. Like, feel for.
Yeah, well.
This is what happens when I try to get Molly to walk and talk.
It's not as easy as it is for you sighted folks, okay? I try. The moment I think people on my channel have been waiting for since my channel began a decade ago. I am here finally with the one and only Christine Ha. This is exciting.
Yeah, I'm very excited too. I remember years and years ago, I mean, it must have been like almost a decade ago or maybe even more when we met on the set of Four Senses when I was filming in Toronto. And then you came and you filmed a little bit and you were like, oh, I'm just starting to get into this. And I was like, oh wow, she's got a big personality for a tiny little person who's so young. And then, you know, we've kind of kept in touch over the years. So, and then I saw you grow and I was really proud of you and representing like the blind and visually impaired community. So I'm super stoked to be here again today with you, reunited.
I know, it's so fun. Like, I was just talking to my boyfriend about this when we were in the car driving here. He's like, have you ever met her? And I was like, yes, we like literally cooked together.
Yes.
I use that term loosely. Anything with me in the kitchen is adjacent to cooking, but probably not really cooking. It is, I would say like one of my biggest weaknesses is just how much I suck at cooking. And it's so funny because you've kind of been like my reference point whenever I talk about me not being able to cook. I'm always like, but it's not because I'm blind. Right. Christine Ha is a great cook and she's blind. I just suck because I'm Molly and I'm not good at cooking.
Sure.
And blindness adds obviously a layer of difficulty.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So when
When
it's already not necessarily like an interest or a passion, or you don't have the natural skill set to be good in the kitchen, and then you add disability. It's like, well, now there's this extra layer that I'm not necessarily sure I'm wanting to like push through.
Yeah, makes
when
sense.
Like Uber Eats is right there.
Exactly,
on
makes
my
sense.
phone.
It totally makes sense. I think a lot of times when I do these public speaking events, I always get the question like, I don't like to cook and I'm not a good cook, like, how do I get better? And I'm like, well, first of all, if it's not your interest, you can't force yourself.
I always say like my passion is like fashion and makeup. Those are very visual things, but being blind, not being able to see them, hasn't stopped me from loving them to the fullest and, you know, doing it every single day and really enjoying it and helping sighted people in my life with it, like styling them and helping them with their makeup. And I always think, you know, I meet sighted people who will say to me, I'm not as good with my makeup, or I can't put an outfit together the way you can, but it's not because of vision loss, right? It's because it's my natural passion and interest. And so would you say cooking has always been that for you? It's just regardless of vision?
I think so. I started learning to cook or teaching myself how to cook. At first it was really out of necessity because my freshman year of college, I lived in a dorm, so I had a dorm cafeteria to rely on to eat in. And then my second year, I moved out to save money and moved into an apartment. And then I suddenly found myself with no dorm cafeteria, a small kitchen, no cooking skills. So I was like, well, I can't eat out all the time. I can't always eat fast food. So I figured I had to teach myself how to cook. So I really just started grassroots, like organically buying a used cookbook and reading the recipes and then kind of experimenting in the kitchen and learning like, okay, if you do this, it burns, or if you do this, it stays raw, and learning how to use a knife. And then I just kind of kept at it, and then I failed a lot at the beginning. And then there was finally, I wouldn't say like months into trying, I finally picked a recipe where I was like, okay, this is the shortest list of ingredients and the shortest amount of instructions in this whole book. And if I can't do this, and I'm giving up, and I'm, you know, we didn't have Uber Eats back then. So I was like, I'm just gonna have to figure it out, or you know, always eat prepackaged meals or whatever. So I finally cooked this recipe. It was a Vietnamese braised ginger chicken recipe with very little ingredients. And I mean, it didn't come out perfect, but it came out really good. And my friends and I, we all ate it. Nothing went in the trash. We didn't have leftovers. And then I remember I had sight at that time, and we were sitting around my table in my apartment, and I remember looking around and seeing their smiles and their faces were like, they felt satiated, and I felt joy. Like, I love being able to make something and make other people happy with something I created. So I think that's what sparked my initial interest in cooking, and then I just wanted to keep practicing and learning, and it grew from there.
So that's fascinating. I kind of had this, I guess, idea in my mind that you just grew up cooking your whole life next to your mom or something. It was a big passion your whole life.
Not at all. Complete opposite.
So that's fascinating to hear that it was something that you actually came to out of necessity, and then it kind of grew into this passion.
Yes, yeah.
So like me, you have a progressive vision loss. You were born blind. So when you started, how much remaining vision did you have, and how did your cooking have to adapt as your vision declined?
I first started teaching myself to cook with full vision, and then coincidentally, it was around the same year that I started experimenting in the kitchen and cooking in my apartment that I noticed one of my eyes going blurry. And I thought, initially I was just like, oh, it's my contact lens, and I changed it out and it was still blurry. So I went to the eye doctor, and then they checked out my eyes and they said, it's not your eyes, it's something neurological. So I was referred to a neuro-ophthalmologist, and then it took a long time for them to figure out what it was, because I was initially misdiagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And then it wasn't until years later that I was correctly diagnosed with something called neuromyelitis optica, or NMO for short, which is a similar autoimmune disease where your immune system attacks your neurological system. So it affected my optic nerves. They kept becoming inflamed, and that's when my vision would deteriorate. And then over the years, my optic nerves just atrophied. And so every time my vision would get worse, it would, they would give me a lot of medications, and hopefully that would help me recover from the vision loss, or hoping it was temporary. But every time it would decrease more, and then it would become my new baseline. And then I would lose more vision in my other eye. And then, so every time this happened, and I would say the vision loss was gradual over a period of about 7 years or so. And each time it got worse, I would just think okay, well, will I ever be able to be independent and cook for myself again? And there were times when I had to start all over, when the year before I was cooking a full Thanksgiving meal for my family, and then the next year I could barely make a peanut butter jelly sandwich, just trying to get the peanut butter spread on the bread in the correct way, and the amount I want, and the jelly, and then putting the two slices together. It was so hard.
Yes, it is ridiculously hard to spread things on toast for me.
Yeah.
It seems like even the most simple things I suck at. I never get the right amount. It's never spread evenly.
Be sloppy. It'll still be sloppy. And at this time and day, I'm nothing, life is never perfect, and we're not perfect. So our toast doesn't have to be perfect either.
I love that. So I'm glad to hear that even the Christine Haas struggles to spread things evenly, so I don't have to beat myself up that much next time I go to try. But how did you overcome that? How did you overcome this feeling of failing at this thing you were once so good at, and push through to become where you are today?
It took a lot of time. I wouldn't say that I think it took maturity, and it took time and more experience. So I really felt like going on MasterChef, I was really in disbelief that I was good enough to qualify to even compete on the show. But when I was there, my intentions were really to just learn about cooking and just improve. I wasn't really there to necessarily win. I was just I think this is a really cool experience. I was in graduate school at the time for creative writing, so I thought if anything, I would have material to come home and write a funny story or something about my experience on the show. But actually going through that, and what I learned is that you don't have to be the very best, but if you are just kind of trying to be better every day, compared to how you were the day before, then you're at least accomplishing something. And you don't need to compare yourself to other people. You just kind of compare yourself to how you were yesterday. And as long as you're incrementally improving at whatever it is you're doing, that's all you should really ask of yourself. And that's amazing, because I think a lot of times we try to jump from A to Z and thinking oh, we failed because we couldn't do it. But there's a lot that is involved in trying to get better and improve. And honestly, Gordon Ramsay helped me build my confidence, because he would always tell me you need to stop doubting yourself and believe in yourself. And he would tell me this food is really good, and it's not just because you're visually impaired. So he slowly built that confidence as well. So I would say it's people around me that helped me kind of just mature into the person that I am today, and the cook that I am today.
What was the in-between of vision loss to MasterChef? What did that look like for you? Did you have somebody from like an organization for the blind come in and provide life skills and help you learn those things like how to not chop your finger off with a knife?
Exactly.
Or were you self-taught?
It was a little bit of both. So as I was losing my vision, I did receive like orientation mobility training, independent living skills training through the Lighthouse and through the vocational rehabilitation agency in Texas. So I was actually working in corporate when I started losing my vision and when I started experiencing all of my health issues and got diagnosed. So I had to leave my corporate job because my undergraduate degree was actually in business. And then I left that job because I was going through a lot of physical health issues. I was at one point like paralyzed from the neck down because of my autoimmune condition.
Wow.
So I was out of, I couldn't obviously go to work. I couldn't like use my hands. And then I was also losing my vision. So I really had to reset and think, okay, let me focus on getting better or just trying to become independent again. And fortunately, I recovered like all of my spinal cord inflammation issues. So I have my sensory motor skills back, but my vision never came back. So then at that point, I was like, well, I wasn't working. I was like, what do I do? I did want to go back to school because I love learning. I feel like I'm a lifetime learner, and books were something that have always been a big part of my life. So growing up, I was an only child and I loved to read. I had a huge imagination. I loved creative writing when I was in elementary school and middle school. And then once I was going through all of this, the only thing that I remember besides my friends and my family being around me that helped me through this time was listening to audiobooks because I was losing my vision, so I couldn't really watch television. I couldn't read a book, and then I was paralyzed from the neck down, so I couldn't, really do anything. So I was so bored. So
and this was before the time of like audio description on TV.
Yeah,
like now
exactly.
It's much easier for us, but I was the same when I lost my vision. I basically went through 10 years where I hardly saw any movies or TV shows because I just couldn't follow along enough for it to actually be enjoyable until AD came out, and then it was like, wow, this whole world is opened up.
And then you feel like you're like missing out because your friends are talking about a new show, and you're like, I'm left out.
And then if you try to watch it so that you can feel like you're not left out, it's only a reminder of being left out because you're still missing so much stuff, and it's like this reminder of, oh, you can't see anymore, and it's just not fun.
Yeah. So I decided to turn a completely new leaf in my life and go back to school and get a degree in creative writing because I thought, well, I don't know where this is going to take me, but this is more fulfilling than where I was before. So I just had to learn to read Braille, learn how to use a screen reader. At the time when my vision was decreasing, I could use a magnifier, but then my vision decreased to the point where now I have to use a screen reader. And then I got like independent living skills to kind of learn how to use a knife again. And I remember the teacher came and gave me this big clunky like knife guard, and I'm like, I don't need this. I can just use a normal knife. I just need to learn to be tactile about it and be careful. So I didn't use the knife guard, even though she had told me that it would help, but I just didn't like it. So then I was like, okay, let me just try and start over and then slowly like cut an orange or let me just try to scramble an egg or cook instant noodles, like very simple things. And then once I achieved one thing, then I'm like, okay, the next day let's try a peanut butter jelly sandwich again, or let's try making toast, or let's try doing over easy egg or something, just getting harder and harder with the challenges I was giving myself because I've always grown up to be very independent, like being an only child, and I lost my mom when I was young, so I felt like I had to grow up very fast. And so I knew, and I lived alone at this time, and I refused to move back in with my dad or anyone else. I was just like, I need to figure this out on my own. So I think it was just a matter of just determination to try to prove to myself and to other people that, hey, I can still live a fulfilling life in spite of my vision loss.
Yeah, having that resilience built in, that determination to want back what you once had, the life you once had in a new way, but being able to still have those full experiences.
Right.
Do you feel like having the base mechanics, the knowledge, the knowing what it should feel like when you're cooking, having learned that as a sighted person, do you think that made it easier to figure out cooking as a blind person?
I don't know. I guess I've never thought about that. I feel like in some ways it must help a little, but I've been cooking without vision so much longer than I've been cooking with vision. And now I feel like cooking is so much about using all of your senses. So yes, if I had sight, it would be easier, but there's things about listening to the pan and how hot, something is sizzling on it. You'll know the temperature or if it's done, or smelling like garlic. Is it still raw, or is it like, okay, sauteed now, or is it burnt? And you're using a lot of other senses, I think, in cooking, and just using your utensil to touch things on the pan. You'll know, like, if you cooked enough, like when the steak is done, or when it's still raw, or when it's like, too charred. So I really think I've learned to rely on my other senses, which I think in cooking, people don't realize that they do use all of their senses a lot more than just their sense of sight.
I feel like so many of my fears, like so many of the things you just touched on there are my fears when it comes to cooking, like heat. I am very scared of heat. I'm very scared to burn myself, of cooktops, of ovens. I'm scared of the oil splatting back. I am scared of knives, sharp knives. I am scared of putting in all of this effort and all of this work only to undercook or overcook something, and for it all to have gone to waste. The money, the time, the energy, the effort, and then dealing with the challenges just to have gotten to that point and failed at the end feels like this huge feat that I don't even care to undertake.
Right.
But I'm sure being who you are and having the experience that you do up till now as a blind chef, you've got ways to work around all of those different things, whether it be the heat, the sharp knives, the knowing whether it's the right time when it's finished.
Find a way, and I'm sure you can speak to so many things about yourself that you're like, when you lost your vision, you're like, oh, I love this, but I want to keep doing it, so I'm going to find a way. So I think it's the same thing with cooking. It's like, to me, it's just like, I may cut myself, but let me just be really careful. And then I just start slow, and then you make progress. And same with, oil splattering. It still happens to me like now. Like the other day, I was like, oh, this is hot oil splattering on me, and this sucks. But you just kind of like, well, your end goal is to complete this dish, so you just suck it up and do it.
Yeah, and I know I get a lot of comments from people who have experienced vision loss and something like makeup. They can no longer do it anymore, and seeing my content of makeup tutorials and stuff like that has inspired them to want to try again. And I know that for me, I've gone through, so I would sit in my room for hours and hours, and I would put a full face on and take it all off, and put it all on and take it all off, and put it all on and take it all off, because I wanted to practice and get good, because I would have too much blush on my face and be like, so my cheeks would be so bright, or I would have mascara streaks down my face, or...
Who's giving you the feedback? Are you like taking pictures and then posting on social and asking for like the public to tell you, or are you going to somebody and asking you like after you do your full face to give you feedback? Like, how did you know?
Well, I would go down to my parents. I was 14 at the time. So I would run down to my parents, and with all the love and care in the world, they would laugh at me because I would just look like a clown. It would just be an absolute mess. And I would listen to makeup tutorials, and I would hear what they're saying, and what do you do with this brush, and how do you apply it, and what part of your face should you be feeling it on. And I would go every birthday and every Christmas, I would go to a makeup counter. That would be my gift. That's all I would want, was to go to a makeup counter, and they would have a makeup artist pick all the products for me and show me where to put them, and then I would get all that. And I would just practice and practice and practice.
And then you get them to do your face, and you're like, okay, this is like how they're doing the strokes.
Exactly.
So, this is where on my face, and then you just learn from that.
Exactly, and even now, when new trends come out in makeup or new products come out, and I want to try it, I know that I'm going to suck at it at first, because it's still a new thing to me, and I still don't have the feedback of sitting in front of a mirror and looking at what I'm doing. But to your point, I'm passionate enough about that, and I care enough about it that I am willing to fail and keep trying. Whereas cooking just isn't. I mean, my mom doesn't enjoy cooking. I don't come from a family of people who enjoy cooking. So, and that's why I do this series, and that's why I'm excited to have you on the series, because this is all about highlighting the fact that there's people in our community that have different interests and backgrounds and experiences and opportunities and skills that I will never possess, whether it's because I just don't have the natural raw talent for it, or because I just don't have the interest level for it. And I want to show that there are people like you who do have that and can do things that I never will be able to. So I'm very excited to get into the kitchen with you, to do some cooking. I'm even more so excited to do some eating, because you now have not one but 2 restaurants.
Right.
So you're far more than just a chef. You're a businesswoman.
Yes.
You have a cookbook.
Yes.
I want to hear, how did the Blind Goat come to be and the cookbook and everything that's come since?
Well, my first cookbook is called Recipes from My Home Kitchen. That was actually part of the prize of winning MasterChef. So coming off of that, I already had a cookbook deal lined up. So I wrote that cookbook. It was published a long time ago in 2013, but it still sells quite well. So that cookbook actually, to my surprise, became a New York Times bestseller.
Wow.
I was really shocked and I was really ecstatic actually, because I felt like just as much as winning MasterChef, it's amazing because I come from the background of writing. I was in graduate school for writing, so the fact that I now have a book about food, two things I got to write it and I got to write about food, two things I love, and it became a New York Times bestseller. I remember the day that my cousin texted me and told me like, oh my gosh, it's on the NYT bestseller list, and it was right above Gwyneth Paltrow's cookbook. Wow, and I was like, oh my gosh, crazy. I beat Gwyneth Paltrow on the bestseller list. But I am now working on my second cookbook finally. Many years later, I now have the time, so this year I'm working on a second cookbook. Focused more on Southeast Asian cooking and just kind of an homage to the memories that I have growing up with my parents and my family and their background being Vietnamese. So that was my cookbook experience. The restaurants, funnily enough, I knew I eventually wanted to have something, but I wanted to have something small. And this was actually a dream of mine even before going on MasterChef. I actually wanted to, with my husband John, open a small craft ice cream shop. Because back then it was like, this was probably like 2010, and the craft ice cream movement had not come to Houston yet. So I had tasted like By-Right Creamery in San Francisco, and I was like, wow, you can do these amazing things with ice cream, not just like your typical vanilla or strawberry or chocolate, which is totally fine too. And ice cream is one of my favorite desserts. So I knew that even before then I was thinking about an ice cream shop, went on the show, won the show in 2012, so that opened up a whole lot of opportunities for me to do other things. But it wasn't until 7 years after winning that I finally opened my first restaurant, which was the Blind Goat. And it was actually a food station or a food stall inside a bigger food hall. And it was only 400 square feet. And I thought it was a small footprint, a small amount of financial investment. So I thought, let me just dabble in this and see if I can legitimately open and run a little restaurant, even if it's inside a food hall, and then just, if it fails, then I learned something and it wasn't too huge of an investment. So that's what I did in 2019. It was the Blind Goat, so I call it a modern Vietnamese eatery. Since then, we've grown and moved into this standalone space here now. So now we're sitting in the Blind Goat. This one just opened, I want to say about 18 months ago. So now it's a full-scale restaurant, dining room, full bar, a bigger kitchen to do things. So this one opened in 2023, and then since then I've opened and closed some other restaurants. Then my second restaurant, though, that's open right now, it's called Stuffed Belly in the same parking lot, and that one is actually I wanted to do something that wasn't Vietnamese food, and the other thing that my husband and I love are sandwiches, and he loves burgers. That's would be his last meal. So we wanted to do something that was more casual, a drive-through, like a quick service restaurant. Right. So we wanted to go something fun and creative, but in a different way where it's not like elevated Vietnamese food, but just like good old American sandwiches with fun
comfort
twists.
Food, yeah.
So we now have Stuffed Belly in the same parking lot. So those are the two concepts. And that one opened just a little over a year ago.
It's really incredible what you've accomplished.
Thank you.
And as I said, I'm very excited to try the food from both places. The Blind Goat is such a great name. How did you come up with that name? Because it's just so good.
We stumbled on it. So when we signed the place in the food hall, we're like, crap, we need to have a name. And we're like coming up with all these names and nothing was sitting right. And then I'm known as the Blind Cook because that is my Instagram handle and my handle on all my social media. But I didn't want to call it that. And it was going to be a Vietnamese concept. So I was like, well, I was born the year of the goat. So that's my zodiac sign in Eastern astrology. So I was like, let's call it the Blind Goat. But then since then, and I didn't know that goat also stood for greatest of all time. And so a lot of people would think that that's what I named it to be, saying, oh, I'm, the greatest of all time, like blind chef. But I was like, well, that kind of
if
fits.
the shoe
I'll
fits,
take it.
if the shoe fits, Christine, you go, it's a happy accident. It works in both ways.
Yeah.
And then I'm very curious because I love design. It's a really big passion of mine, whether it be the physical design of products, of packaging, or of physical spaces. I've designed my own space. I do corporate consulting on physical design. So I'm curious, when designing this beautiful space, did you take accessibility into account? Is accessibility of the space something you were thinking about in the design?
I did. So when we moved into this space for the Blind Goat, it was just a shell. So we built it pretty much, I mean, it was, the exterior was here, but we had to build everything on the inside. So put in the kitchen, the hood for the kitchen, the bar, decide like where all the dining tables would go. And my main thing was like, I love design too, but because I can't see, color palettes and those kinds of things won't necessarily be my forte. But my husband, who comes from like a design background, I let him handle that and I trust his taste. But we work together, so that I know where things are and the layout makes sense. So, it makes sense for the restaurant to run efficiently, but it also makes sense for me to get around with accessibility issues as well. So my biggest contribution and request, I think, to the restaurant when we built it out was to have a gender neutral restroom. Because I travel all the time with my husband at the airport or at other public restroom places that have a men's room and a women's room. He's like, well, I can't take you into the women's room and you can't go in the men's room. And I'm like, damn it, now I have to find a stranger.
It is
or
so
like
difficult,
try to find
Christine.
a stall. Yeah, and I'm like, where's the sink? I'm like, this is, I don't know where the toilet is, and it's so stressful.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Peeing on your own is I all the time, I joke, because a lot of my friends are LGBTQ+, and I have a lot of lesbian friends, and I always joke with them. I'm like, the one time it would be so convenient to be a lesbian is when I'm going to the bathroom in public when I'm just out with my partner, because he can't come in with me, and I would love to have him be able to come in with me. So whenever we can find one of the like family bathrooms or the standalone bathrooms, I'm like, thank God, because then I can know where the toilet is, where the sink is, where the hand dryer is, the garbage. Like everything's in a different spot in every single bathroom that you go into. And the bigger the bathroom, the more of a nightmare it is. And sometimes they have like dividers in the middle of the damn room. I'm like, what is going on?
Or you go in and like the women's restroom, sometimes they try to be fancy and they have that lounging area with the sofa, and I'm like, where am I?
And then if there's a line, God forbid, I don't know, and I just like walk past the line, or I cut somebody, or I'm holding up the line because I'm just standing there not realizing I can go, and it's like so stressful. It's so funny how something as simple as peeing when you're blind becomes such a nuisance when you're out in public. And so the moment you said gender neutral bathroom, I was like, I know exactly where she was going with this, because my boyfriend and I deal with this all of the time when we are out together. All this talk about this beautiful space, I want to explore it, because we walked in and my boyfriend was like, oh my God, it's so beautiful, I love the texture, I love the lighting, and I'm like, I can't see any of it. So I want to go get my hands on this space and feel my way around. Will you take me on a tour?
I sure will, let's go.
We are quite literally blind leading the blind right now, because I have Christine's elbow and she's like, I have never given somebody else that guide.
Yeah, no one's ever needed my help to get around, but this will be a first, so I'll try to be a good guide.
We've got the canes in hand. I'm sure you know this place like the back of your hand. So.
I do. I walk around here without unless it's service and or they're cleaning and they move stuff around, like I know how to walk this place without a cane.
Perfect. Let's explore the restaurant. The Blind Goat.
Yes.
The Blind Goat will show me the Blind Goat.
So we're at the entrance, so if you come in, like you would come in the door and then you walk up here, and this is our host stand. So here you would like check in, our host would say hello, there's probably menus all over the place right now on there. And then if you go right—
Do you have Braille menus?
We did when we had the NFB convention, but our menu changes quite frequently, so it's hard to keep that up. But when the NFB came to town, we did have the Braille menus for them. We brailled it out. So here on the right, we have our bar. So our bar is actually, like if you reach out, like the counter kind of curves. So this is like the tongue of the bar. So it's like a long bar that stretches kind of all the way to towards your, I guess that would be your 10 o'clock now. But this is like the end of the bar, the lip of the bar. So here, take my arm. I was about to take your arm again. And then here we have, if you reach out, there are ropes. So this is what my— so this will ropes off are what we call in the industry, or PDR, which stands for private dining room. So it's like semi-private. But if you go inside here, take my arm on. If you go inside, here. I always think I'm gonna walk into the ropes.
That's cool.
So now you're inside. The sides are drawn up right now, so there's ropes all over the ceiling, but we can take the ropes down on the side, and then it encloses this center dining table even more.
Fascinating. Is that for private parties?
Yes, for a big party who might want a little bit more privacy, but we, it still doesn't make you feel like you're too cut away from the rest of the dining room. But my best friend's husband is actually the architect that designed the space. And we told him when we wanted it designed, we were like, we want it to feel like you're dining like beachside in Vietnam, but in a modern chic setting. So I think the rope, and also we were on a budget. So we were like, oh, the ropes will be like, it'll have that nature feel, but then, kind of close this off.
Almost has like a nautical feel.
Exactly, yeah. So the color scheme here, I believe, is like light wood. I believe the chairs are like sage green. The banquette benches are like a navy blue.
Oh, so nice. Yeah, the moment we walked in, my boyfriend was saying it's very like coastal beachy kind of vibes.
That's the exact feel that we were going for. So I'm
you
glad
nailed
that,
it. Yeah, because
I'm glad
exactly
that y'all got that. Okay, so we're gonna try to attempt to go out of the little entrance. So we're now walking the length of the bar, and we have like little plants kind of in random places to add to more of the tropical feel. I think on the walls we have like different wicker baskets or rattan baskets maybe.
And how many people does this place seat?
The dining room seats, I want to say like 70 something, roughly around there. Yeah, and we have a little patio too, so that seats more.
Oh, that's so nice. Are you just at dinner, open for dinner?
Yeah, we're open only for dinner, yes. And then this wall I just put up some pictures that there's a picture, I think, of me and some of the MasterChef judges, and then my family or in Vietnam or whatever, so just a little personal touches. And then if you turn this way, this is the gender-neutral restroom. So here, do you know how to read Braille, Molly?
Of course.
Yeah, so here is our sign that we got that has some Braille on it.
It feels like it's wood.
It is wooden, yeah.
That's so nice. And there's the large print. And then we've got the Braille. All gender restroom.
There you go. So we can go in. I'm going to open the door. There's like a little frosted window. Here's our restroom.
Also, I really appreciate, this is something I talk about a lot when I do accessibility design consulting, the placement of where you put the sign, because it's always on the door, which is not helpful, because then you're touching the door, and if somebody opens it, it's like dangerous and awkward. And you placed it like right next to where the door handle is, which is an instinctive space to go and touch to feel for it.
Oh, I never even thought of that.
Well
That's
done.
good to know that my team did that.
They did a good job.
So yeah, this is our restroom. So to the left is like a trough sink with automatic like soap and water faucets, and then the right, there are 4 stalls. And my husband's request for the restroom was that the door goes all the way to the ground, because he's like, I don't need anyone like seeing my feet when I'm in the restroom. So the stalls go all the way.
Yes, I feel that. I appreciate when people do that. And also, I appreciate a public bathroom that plays music.
Yeah, so the music there are speakers in the bathroom, so you'll hear the music that plays in the dining room.
Thank you. We don't want to hear each other peeing.
Exactly.
I want the stall to go to the ground so nobody can look over or under me.
Yep.
And then I don't want to hear my neighbor peeing, and I don't want them to hear me. I want music playing for ambiance. Well done. Good bathroom, quality bathroom. 10 out of 10 would recommend peeing here.
All right, so we're going out of the restroom, I think. Yeah, here, so watch and then we're gonna go left, and then we're gonna go into the kitchen. So here's gonna be like the swing door that leads into the kitchen. So my team is in here now prepping for service. So now you're in the kitchen.
Oh, it smells good.
So you hear my prep team in the back, and then it's like kind of it feels like a large, long galley kitchen. The dish pit is on the right, so that's where the dishwasher would be. You're kind of standing near like where I would stand normally during service, so this is like the pass, which is where the food will start coming out, and the servers come in and run the food out. So this is the pass. To the left is our hotline, so you'll have like our big stock burner, our flat top, our grill, our fryer, and then in the back is like some prep space and storage.
And how many staff do you have at this space?
This one we have, I want to say 30 to 35 staff here. Yeah,
it's a lot to manage.
It is. It's a full-time job.
I always think, I mean, any kitchen for me is chaotic and dangerous, but I think kitchens like this, like that are actually serving a restaurant.
Yeah.
Like big commercial kitchens must
when
be
we
so
come back
stressful.
later, I'm going to take you back, and then you're going to see the difference, because this is actually very calm.
Yes, I'm
and then
sure.
you're going to,
I'm
feel
sure
what,
when it's actually service hours.
yeah, I think it'll be fun, because you'll smell all the smells, and then you'll hear like the wok going off and all the food like cooking, and then it'll be like, it'll still be calm back here, but it's going to be a lot more stuff happening.
Now I know
in
that
the
you
sense,
don't
noises.
traditionally like cook at this space. This isn't where you're doing a lot of your cooking.
Yes.
You cook a lot at home, and
Yes.
I'm assuming that you are the one who's coming up with a lot of the recipes that end up on this menu, and then share that with your staff here. Is that how it
Exactly.
works?
Yes, because the kitchen is so there's so many things going on when the kitchen is busy that it's hard for me to focus. So
Yeah.
I just need kind of like a more zen space. So that's my home kitchen, and obviously I know where everything is in my home kitchen. No one moves anything around. So that's where I do like all of the research and development, or the R&D, and like recipe testing. And then once I fine tune something like that, then I'll write it down, because I'm well versed in recipe writing, being
Right.
a cookbook writer.
Right.
So then I'll come in also, and then perhaps like show my team or give them the recipe, and then have them try it out, and then we tweak it together.
Very cool. That must be so fun, coming up with all the recipes and experimenting, and all the eating you must get to do.
Yeah, I mean, but then sometimes it does feel like it's still a job. So then after a while, I'm like, oh, I've been smelling this thing for 5 hours. I don't want to smell it.
Yeah, you're like,
anymore,
I've made the same
anymore.
dish
Yeah,
18
exactly,
times to try to perfect it, and I'm so
Yeah.
over it by the time it makes the menu.
Yeah.
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 Fair enough.
Cool.
So we're gonna be cooking at your kitchen,
Yes,
not
we'll
here.
be cooking at my home kitchen, where it's going to be, because they'll be opening for the restaurant here, and then we'll be cooking in my home kitchen, where it's a lot quieter,
Well,
and just the two of us.
Should we get cooking?
It'll be fine. I'm here.
Okay.
It's not going to explode.
So now we're in my standalone drive-through concept, which is called Stuffed Belly.
I got the Blackberry Magic,
It's in your right hand.
which is,
Nope. There you go. Right.
this one?
There you go.
That's Blackberry Magic?
Yep.
I'm blind. I have never had duck, and what better occasion than now? So I'm gonna try it. I'm a little intimidated. Okay,